eventually I would have to answer this question. This video is both inspired by and hopefully adds to Professor Dave Explains video about astrology. The video that Professor Dave did on astrology is very informative, and it perfectly illustrates why astronomers nowadays are not believers in astrology. So to understand the context, you should absolutely check out that video, which I'll have a link to in the description. However, there is one major thing about the zodiac dates in Professor Dave's astrology video that wasn't mentioned. And believe me, they merely add to why people like us think astrology is bogus. If you don't want to listen to my rant on where certain aspects of astrology irritate me, and you just want to get to that information, then go ahead to this timestamp. Believe me, I've had plenty of people come up to me and ask me things like, "What's your sign? Do you believe in astrology?" Of course, someone like me who showcases celestial objects for a living is gonna have to answer those questions at some point. It's part of the job. I've also met a few illiterates who simply call me an astrologist out of ignorance. And when I try to correct them, they say they don't know the difference. I say I'm an astronomer, an experienced telescope user, and astrophotographer, and they say, "Oh, you're into horoscopes and the zodiac signs?" And one person even asked me, "So, do you dress up in robes and perform rituals?" So, as irritating as it is sometimes, I can understand why a layperson would confuse the terms, since astro means stars and logy means study of. So people hear terms like biology, geology, entomology, seismology, and assume astrology is in the same category.
Nope.
Astrology was as close to the science from ancient times all the way into the Middle Ages. They were still observing the sky and cataloging the stars and the position of celestial objects. It led people to study the sky, find the patterns, which ultimately led to people rigorously trying to figure out how things really worked. It took centuries for the study of the science to break away from astrology. But because astrology predates it all, that's why things having to do with divine information about human and earthly events by studying the movements and positions of the sun, moon, planets, and stars gets the good name, and why everything having to do with the natural science behind how things happen in the sky and what causes them gets the other name, astronomy, which means the law or culture of stars. So then what do I think of astrology? Honestly, I'm indifferent to it. And do I believe in any of it? Absolutely not. Based on the physical laws of gravity and the vast distances between the sun, moon, planets, and stars, I don't believe there's any correlation with their positions that cause your personality, your compatibility issues, or your day-to-day fortunes. From a purely scientific standpoint, astrology just isn't real to me. Do I hate people who genuinely believe in astrology? No, I don't. I've met a few, and as long as they understand that astrology and astronomy are two completely separate beings, then I say believe in whatever the hell you want. Honestly, if things like that are what floats your boat and make you get up every morning, then who am I to tell you no? And I also respect that certain cultures and religions have their own set of astrology beliefs, especially Hindu or Vedic astrology. Whenever I visit Native Americans and do outreach events for them, I actually love learning about their rituals and beliefs about the stars and the heavens. So when it's a matter of just merely sharing cultures, that's different. So where do I get irritated when it comes to astrology?
I don't know what they're doing.
I was on a talk show with an astrologer.
A real one? How do you know?
She says she's real. I trust her because she talks about how fake other astrologers are. And she was saying that the Kennedys all died during a lunar eclipse.
Oh, scary.
And, you know, that this is a very checkable statement. She just says this and everyone's listening and believing and said, wow, that can't be by accident. Well, I don't know when other Kennedys died, but I know when Jack Kennedy died, and it was November 22nd, 1963. So I don't need to know if there's an eclipse then. I just need to know what phase the moon is in.
Right.
Because you can only have a lunar eclipse when the moon is full. So the moon was nowhere near full. It was like 2 weeks away from full. Even if there was an eclipse, It didn't happen during an eclipse, is my point. So I said, he was shot when I forgot what moon it was, a first quarter moon. And she said, oh, well, this counts if they're anywhere within 2 weeks on either side of the eclipse.
What? That's a month.
That's a month out of 12. What? So I just said, I have nothing more to say here. Hence, my argument with her lasted less than 5 minutes.
The astrologer is lucky that Neil wanted to stay civil in front of the cameras on the talk show. He could have easily kept calling her out.
You can Google it. It's really easy.
Yes, Chank, I'm Googling it. The astrologer claims, oh, well, this counts if you're 2 weeks on either side of the eclipse. Obviously, they know that there's always a 2-week period on either side between a full moon and a new moon. Which is basically like saying, well, it still counts if I got the letter or number column right in Battleship. So, we have a first quarter moon on November 22nd, 1963. When was the next full moon? A week later, on November 30th. No eclipse. In fact, there were 2 full moons in November 1963. And again, no eclipse. That's 2 misses. Oh, sure, they could say, but there was one on December 30, 1963. Well, the date between the eclipse and the assassination was longer than 2 weeks. In fact, it was over a month. So, nope, doesn't count because it wasn't within 2 weeks, like you said. Well, what about Robert Kennedy? Killed on June 8, 1963. Well, there was an eclipse in April and one in October, 2 months and 4 months apart respectively. Nope, doesn't count based on that absurd claim of it still counts within 2 weeks. Then they could go, well, it happened on the same year. Dumbass, you can get several lunar eclipses per year. 2020 alone has 4. The fact that people will hear something so checkable and believe just reminds me of those people in Avatar that relied solely on their fortune teller to base their life decisions.
Look! Can your fortune telling explain that?
Can your science explain why it rains?
Yes! Yes, it can!
Well, I don't care if that volcano is blowing up. My horoscope told me I should go for a hike today. I get irritated by people who claim they're into astrology, but through their illiterate incompetence, prove that I know more about astrology than they do. Oh, and then they try to say fake, oh, I don't really believe in that stuff. I get irritated by people who claim, oh, it's just silly fun, I don't really believe in it. But then they won't shut up about their zodiac sign, the fact that they are that zodiac sign, or constantly post about how much they're compatible or not compatible with certain signs, blah, blah, blah.
Bullshit, 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 bullshit.
The people who constantly claim, oh, I can't help, I'm irritable today because I'm this zodiac sign and that certain planet is over there. They have to do the whole Mercury retrograde crap. Well, I got news for you. Mercury is always in retrograde because in our sky, due to its orbit, it appears to move up to 27 degrees west of the sun, switch direction, cross back in front of the sun, and then appear 27 degrees east of the sun. Rinse, lather, repeat. So no, entitled Karen, you're not a bitch because you're a Taurus, you're just a bitch. I get irritated by people who will read my astronomy website posts or hear me talk about celestial events, past, present, or upcoming, like the Mercury transit in 2019, for example. There's always going to be that one person who asks me, so I'm a Virgo and Mercury is my ruling planet, which I just want to slap them silly. It's even worse when after I said that I don't do astrology, they proceed to ask me another astrology question like, oh, but isn't Saturn supposed to be evil? At that point, the person is either dumb as fuck or is just trying to troll me. And lastly, what you've been waiting for me to talk about, all the crap about the zodiac signs and what your star sign is, in public, when people will see me show a constellation with my lasers and go, oh, I'm a blah blah blah, can you show me where blah 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 is? Alright, here is an astronomy lesson for dummies, and this actually does correlate with your zodiac dates. The zodiac is a family of constellations that the sun, moon, and planets cross in front of. We call this path of the sky the ecliptic. Throughout the year, the sun's position gradually shifts from west to east in front of the zodiac constellations. Most people actually don't know that their zodiac sign on their birthday is determined by the position of the sun and what constellation it's in front of. In other words, if you're a Leo, then on your birthday, the sun is directly in front of Leo. That's why you don't see that constellation at night on your birthday, because it's actually in the sky during the day. And the sun's light and Rayleigh scattering prevent you from seeing it.
Everybody got that? Good.
I was born December 22nd. So what does that make me? If you answered Capricorn, you're dead wrong. The sun is actually in front of Sagittarius on my birthday. How can I be a Capricorn if the sun is no longer in front of that constellation on my birthday? Here is the next part of the astronomy lesson for you kids out there. The dates that we associate with the zodiac signs were assigned 2,500 years ago by Babylonian astrologers who wanted to base it off a 12-month calendar where each zodiac constellation took 30 degrees of the sky. 30 times 12 meaning 360 degrees. Oh yeah, even Babylonian astrologers figured out the sky was a celestial sphere. Let that sink in, flurfers. In reality, the actual zodiac constellations are not perfectly 30 degrees across from east to west along the ecliptic. Some take up more portions of the sky, some take up less. And there's also one constellation the ecliptic passes through that wasn't initially part of the 12. Ophiuchus the snake bear, which dips between Scorpius and Sagittarius. Not only that, the Earth's precession has caused a shift in the positions of the constellations as well. Every 70 years or so, the sun's position on any given day shifts west, and the corresponding background constellation behind it shifts east by about a degree, or the width of your pinky held at arm's length. So that small of a shift, you're not going to notice that change in your lifetime. But over a couple thousand years of recorded human history, yep, there is definitely a shift. And it's the same reason why Polaris has not always been our North Star. But that's another topic for another discussion as soon as some idiot flurfer tries to lecture me on the sky. Good luck with that. Because of this, for most people, the position of the sun on their birthday has actually switched to the constellation before. For example, if you're a Taurus based on the old dates, you're most likely in Aries now. We call this shift the precession of the equinoxes because of the shift on the zodiac constellation the sun is aligned with on vernal equinox, first day of spring. You know how the vernal equinox is associated with the first day of Aries being the beginning of an astrological new year? In actuality, the sun is in front of Pisces now on March 21st. Some people have lucked out and their zodiac sign has remained the same, and they can thank the actual constellation for just being very wide. Others, I have found, were still within their old zodiac constellation on the day they were actually born, but 30 to 40 years later, the sun completely crossed over to the next one for people born on the same day. This is all stuff you can look up yourselves on planetarium maps if you don't believe me. It's also not a permanent change. So if you really want the dates assigned all those years ago to be correct, so you can truly say you're a blah blah blah, you'll have to wait another 25,000 years. So there are several types of people who will receive this information. Person A, they'll be indifferent, and it'll just confirm to them that star signs are silly and pointless. Person B will be fascinated by it. Some will even be glad to share this info to that obnoxious person who won't shut up about their zodiac sign, and show them that star signs are silly and pointless. Person C will say, I don't care if the new dates say I'm now a Libra, I still identify as a Scorpio. In this day and age, it's more culturally acceptable to identify as whatever gender pronoun or persona you want, so go ahead and identify with your choice of zodiac sign. It still doesn't mean you're astronomically correct. Once again, you're just proving that star signs are silly and pointless. And then, of course, genuine astrologers or person D will say, oh, well, there's other types of astrology that accounts for the changes. To which I'll reply, okay, good. Believe in it all you want, just keep it out of the science discussion. You are right, it really doesn't harm anyone or anything, and the main reason why people have varying levels of interest in such a relic is for one reason and one reason only. It's fun, and people like the idea of it. Some people retain it as part of their theological beliefs, and as said before, I can respect that to an extent. But the bottom line is, from a purely scientific standpoint, there is no correlation between the positions of celestial objects on your date of birth and what happens to you as a person. If you still genuinely believe in that correlation, then whatever. It's just not a good idea to come up to an astronomer and ask, "What's your sign?" or try to discuss astrology with them. Thank you for watching and listening. If you like what I have to say, please subscribe, give this video a like, and share the hell out of this video. And I really love to hear your comments on whether you agree or you disagree. I'm your heavy metal astronomer, Desert Coyote 22, and I'm a Sagittarius, not a Capricorn.